There are a handful of expenses so big they can break an entire HOA, drain its reserves, trigger massive special assessments, and blindside every owner. Roofs, roads, and a few others. Today, I'll show you what these big ticket items really cost and why they're so dangerous, and how communities can stay ready for them instead of getting crushed. Most of what your HOA spends money on is small and routine, but a few expenses are in a completely different league, big enough to threaten the entire community's finances if it isn't prepared. These are the items that show up in the reserve studies with a scary price tag, and they're the reason reserve funding exists at all. Let's walk through the heavy hitters. First, roofs. In communities where the association maintains the roofing, many condos and townhome developments, this is often the single largest reserve expense. Roofs don't last forever. Depending on the material, they need replacing every couple of decades. And replacing roofing across an entire community can run into some serious money. When a roof project arrives and reserves aren't ready, it's one of the most common triggers for a large special assessment. Second, there's roads and pavements. Asphalt has a limited lifespan, and it degrades faster than people expect if it isn't maintained. Seal coating and repairs, they buy you time, but eventually the roads need resurfacing or a full replacement. A huge expense for any community with significant private streets or parking areas. Roads are sneaky because they look fine right up until they don't, and by then the fix is expensive. Third, the big amenities. Pools especially are costly. Resurfacing, equipment, decking, and ongoing compliance and safety requirements. Clubhouses, elevators in mid-rise buildings, and community centers all carry major replacement and repair costs. Elevators in particular can be enormously expensive and are heavily regulated. Fourth, exterior painting and siding. In associations responsible for building exteriors, repainting the whole community on a cycle is a substantial recurring reserve cost, and siding replacement is even bigger. These aren't optional. Deferring them leads to moisture damage that costs a lot more to fix. Fifth, and increasingly, insurance and those surprises. Insurance isn't a reserve item exactly, but soaring premiums have broken more than a few association budgets very recently. And then there are the true wild cards: storm damage, construction defects, aging infrastructure like plumbing or fire systems. These can hit hard and fast. So what makes these items so dangerous? Three things. One, they're expensive, often the largest numbers in the entire budget. Two, they're infrequent, which lulls communities into ignoring them until they're imminent. And three, they're not really optional. You can delay a roof, but you can't cancel it. Water always wins eventually. Here's the good news. None of these should ever be a surprise. Every one of them is predictable. A reserve study forecasts exactly when each big ticket item will need attention and what it's going to cost. And the funding plan tells the association how much to save each year to be ready. The whole system exists precisely so that roofs and roads don't break the community. So the communities that handle these well, they're not lucky, they're prepared. They keep their reserve study current, they fund the reserves at the recommended level, and they time the projects strategically to get the best value rather than scrambling in an emergency. When a roof reaches end of life, the money's there, the project happens, and most owners barely even notice. That's what good financial management looks like. Big expenses handled quietly because they were planned for. The communities that get crushed did the opposite. They underfunded the reserves, deferred the maintenance, kept the dues artificially low, and then they got hit with the full cost all at once through a special assessment. Same roof, same road, completely different experience for the owners, based entirely on whether the community planned ahead. Here's your takeaway as a homeowner. Look at your reserve study and identify your community's big ticket items and their timing. And then check whether reserves are funded to meet them. If a major project is approaching and the reserves are thin, that's worth raising with your board right now, because these are exactly the expenses that turn into painful surprises when nobody plans for them. The roof is coming. The road is coming. The only question is whether your community is going to be ready. Now you know what to check. For more on how reserves and reserve studies work, watch the videos that are linked here. Subscribe for more, and if your board needs help planning and funding for these big ticket items before they hit, that's the heart of what I do at Aligned Impact. Links are down below in the description. My name is Jay Boykin. I'll see you in the next video.